How are you doing?
Good. Glad to be here, obviously. See you guys. And nice coming down to the rink now, I've been here for a little bit. We're just waiting on the birth of our next baby, so we're in town for a little while.
Okay.
And then, but yeah, good to get away from the rink, but kind of ready to come back and start, gearing things up a bit.
Can I ask you the obvious question? When Craig was traded to Buffalo, No, I'm not going.
I know where this is going already.
Actually, as a matter of fact, you don't.
Okay.
All right. You want to let me conduct an interview here with Carter Hutton, or you want to go? Carter, when Craig was traded here, San Jose was unbelievable, and they were, favored to win the Stanley Cup. And I said to Riv one day, I'm like, what are you going to do if San Jose wins? And he said, I'm going to be sick to my stomach. I'm just curious, what are the emotions like watching St. Louis right now?
I'm honestly pulling for them.
Yeah.
In true honesty, I'm pulling for them. I left on my own terms. Like, it was one of those things, the writing was on the wall for me, and I needed to go somewhere else. And obviously Buffalo came home for us. But I have a lot of close friends, and that's honestly what I pull for. I think at this point, you've played long enough, I cheer for the people more than I cheer for, like, the team or the city, because the business side of it. I'm not worried about who's making money, who's doing whatever. You're cheering for people, right? And, like, for me personally, like, a guy like Robert Bertuzzo is a good friend from Thunder Bay. We've been together a long time, and I know he's going to throw one hell of a cup party if he wins it. So, but that's honestly what I cheer for. So
at the cottage,
there's your reason right there.
The party.
I'm truly not trying to pour salt in an open wound
it's
here.
not at all.
We're athletes. We're human too, and I think people don't understand the human element to it. And sometimes when a guy leaves, there's been tons of stories where a guy's been traded off a team or something, and the team goes on to win. So I was just wondering if it's something that you put thought in. Or?
No,
it's a great question.
Like, of course, there's the human side of me. Like, I want that. Like, I'm jealous in the sense of, like, I want to win a Stanley Cup. I want to be the guy. You want to do that. But in the same sense, like, I'm excited for those guys that I've, become friends with and build relationships with. And I truthfully believe that, like, me leaving has helped pave the way for a kid like Jordan Binnington. Because in my sense, I think I stay there and I continue to play well and do my thing, where he may never get his chance in that sense. So you're happy for a guy like that as well.
He owes you 10% of his next deal.
I don't know about that, but I'll take it, though.
Did you see him in training camp, Jordan Binnington, and say, like, wow, he's going to be good? Because I remember with the Rangers, Cam Talbot was the next up-and-comer. And my last year, Talbot signed a 2-year deal, with the first year being a two-way and the second year a one-way. So I knew that's my last year here.
Yeah.
Like, he's coming in. But I could see him in training camp and in practice. Wow, he's going to be really good. Did you see that out of Jordan Binnington?
No, I honestly didn't. He was he was a good goalie, right, by any means. But I didn't see him being like the next big thing, or in that sense. They were really high on a Finnish kid, Ville Husso.
Yep.
So that was kind of last year. It was like, Husso's coming, kind of. You know how it is as a goalie, right? There's always the next guy. Yep. And Binnington was kind of an afterthought. Like, they had loaned him out at one point, and a good kid. I got to know him, and it didn't really amaze me. But, like, the way the run he's been on is, phenomenal. I think he's a product of his team. Like, they do a good job, but his, like, from the outside looking in, like, his mental toughness and his mental demeanor to me is, like, very impressive for a guy like jumping in the league like that.
Is that the normal age of a goaltender starting to come into his own? Because I know that he's 25 right now. You have Linus Ullmark, who is 24, 25. Is that the normal age for a goaltender to start to kind of hit the sweet spot in his career?
I guess, you'd think, I guess, like a big prospect, or a guy that, like a Vasilevsky, or these younger guys sometimes, you hope at that point they're hitting it. But a guy like Binnington, I think it kind of came out of nowhere in that sense. I think you talk to anybody in the St. Louis Blues organization, you don't know when it was going to hit. But, even a kid like Linus, you'd think that maturity-wise, right, just having that extra year and hitting that phase where you can really sustain the mental pressure of a full NHL season.
Well, I've been sitting here and not hoping, obviously, but just wondering if the bottom's going to fall out, and it just hasn't yet.
I know.
You thought it did in Game 3, was it, when they lost 7-2 and he got pulled?
Yeah.
But and then he comes back and he wins another one. I can't explain it, but
He's got ice in his veins. It's his attitude,
He does have that.
To be an elite goaltender, or a goaltender that's going to stay in the National Hockey League, you're going to have your ups and downs, and you are going to get shelled some games. It's how you react, and it's almost like if you can forget things and move on, those are the goaltenders that seem to have the most success.
I agree, and I think
Don't hold baggage.
For me, like, from the outside looking in, it's not his game that impresses me. It's like the mental toughness of, and I feel like St. Louis also, like, from a team perspective, has done a good job.
Yeah.
but he has made timely saves, right? And it's not always like how many you make, it's like the time you make them, and right now that's what they need. And because I feel like Tuukka Rask has been the busier of the two goalies in the series. But Binnington makes a timely save, like in the game they won in overtime. He makes one like late in the game on Krejci, or I think it was Pasternak, in the slot, and then they beat him in OT, right? Things like that.
Do you like watching hockey?
I do a lot in the play. This is probably the most hooked I've been on a playoff
Because
run.
of St. Louis, you think?
And because I think my wife's pregnant and we're like, have a little, so I'm like, we're not really gallivanting, not really doing too much, nothing too crazy, and because St. Louis too, I'm kind of, but in years past when I was younger, I didn't really watch it as much, but now I'm also a fan of the game too, right? And I like learning, seeing trends and seeing what's successful.
So the Blues changed coach halfway in the season. It changed, and it helped Binnington and the structure of the team. We had, Coach Kruger on earlier, and I'm interested to see if you had a chance to talk to him and what that conversation was like, and where do you see the team being able to support the goaltending better next season, because it was hard at time to see what was happening in the defensive zone and how you guys were left by yourself on many plays. So all of this coming in, how do you feel about it?
It's great. I think Ralph is a guy that, that's kind of his key point, you know what I mean? Tightening things up and having a little more structure, which is obviously going to be important. From my standpoint, coming from a team like where it was St. Louis, where, I put up good numbers and a little more veteran team, I just thought the play last year was like St. Louis was so predictable.
Yep.
We're coming in last year playing here, just the unpredictableness of like our D zone sometimes, which is sometimes at a goalie. And I think at points, early on I was able to like manage it, and then I thought at points I was trying to do too much, right? So having that in and trying to bring that structure in is something that I think will help overall, just for our success. I think you look at the playoffs this year, every team that scores a lot of goals was bumped first round.
Yeah.
It's all the teams that had that structure and have that. Every game you knew what you're getting on the D zone, right? So I think that's the way the league is, but then in the same sense, you got to score enough goals to get in. So it's kind of a...
Well, how did you feel, though? Because I can only put myself into your shoes when one game you have a player coming down the left wing and you are locked in on that player, and then he passes it to a guy wide open in the back door. So the next game, you're cheating back, trying to cover the back door, and then you get scored on that straight-on play. So how did that affect you in trying to search for the right balance, especially in the second half of the season?
Yeah, I think it is a balance. That's definitely a good word. I think at times early on I was just flowing with it, right? Things were going great, and then I thought at a point we struggled, and I didn't play as well because I was trying to do too much, right? Like we talk about, I was trying to predict a next backdoor pass or this going on instead of just playing my guy, right? Where I thought later in the year, I don't think we were winning as much, but at that point I was controlling what I could control.
Yep.
If a guy makes a great play and they get a backdoor pass, they score, like at some point you have to know that you're doing your job. Where I thought for part of it, I was trying to do everybody's job, myself and how that works in net, right? It's like quicksand, right? You're trying to do too much and you pay for it. So I think it was a good learning experience in that sense. And, I think headed into this year, you have that capability, and it's something to learn from, to know that I can just play inside my game and have the most success.
Do you sit down with your defense and talk about situations on how you want them to be played? For an example, I've played on a few different teams. I played in front of a few different goaltenders. And for an example, when I got to San Jose, Evgeny Nabokov wanted on a 2-on-1 for you just to force the guy that had the puck. He did not want a shot to come. He was already moving towards the guy on the back door, and he made the save all the time because it was a set play. It's like, the typical, when you grow up as a young kid, they always say, don't let the puck go to the back door.
Leave the shooter.
Yeah.
Give the shooter. And he was the exact opposite. He's like, I like the idea of me not taking the shooter, but I want you to force the guy with the puck to give the pass across, but I'm already going to be there because we know how we're going to be playing. Do you have communication with your D on how you want things to be played?
Yeah.
So there's no gray area on how the D are playing certain situations?
We do communicate about it, but there's definitely still, I think, sometimes there's just difference between, like, because now everything is broken down at such an extreme. But I always like the fact of, like, when he gets to a certain point, say we're attacking him. So it doesn't become a breakaway. It doesn't become, because I trust in my athleticism that if we force a pass, I can get to it, right? And it's a lot harder, like a clean play. For a few years when I was in Nashville, we used to go long body. Every time that a guy would get to a certain point, we would go on the ice. So now if this guy did shoot, it was an easier play because I knew it was coming high, or if he passed it, it was a sauce. And I felt that sauce gave me like so much extra time to beat it on my feet.
And it could be a bad pass, too.
Of course,
like,
right now you're forcing them to play.
It was the same thing like on a power play situation. I always liked having the weak side defenseman play the strong post, so he wasn't allowing the player to just walk off the goal line.
Yeah.
And if he was going to make a pass back door, then it was going to be a slower pass, and I knew that was my play. Now, last year, we've seen it so many times, a guy walk right out. So you maybe more aggressive with your stick, having to maybe change the way you play the guy off the goal line. Are some of those situations where you're a veteran, can you go in the coach's office and say, hey, listen, in my experience and what I've liked is something different than what we're doing? Or do you just try to adjust and adapt with what the coaches are putting out there?
No, I think things are definitely open, right? You're never going to say what's wrong and what isn't, right? You just kind of use your experience, like you said. And I think that's a perfect example of the predictableness of what I saw in years past. Compared to where maybe I knew if a guy was coming wide, I could be more aggressive because I knew I had. Where now you're giving up 2 threats, right? Where then you start to cheat, and so I think heading into this season, we're going to have a lot of younger guys that have a year under their belt, and a little more better communication in the D zone is something that I think I will definitely benefit from, the predictableness, and our team will as a whole.
Instigators joining us right now. I don't know how much more time we have with them. I mean, I'm going to roll 2 more minutes. Is that a 2? All right, we'll go 4 more minutes.
That's a piece. You can do whatever you want.
That's a 2 times 2 equals 6 minutes. And, I want to ask you, you've been known as a guy, like the scouting report on you is you're not afraid to tell it like it is in the locker room. And you've had a couple times this year, you were not afraid to just say how your team played. How do your teammates react to that?
I think it's good. I feel like because I'm honest with myself as well, right? With my teammates. Like, I don't try to shy away from it. Like, if I'm not doing my job, like, I'll be the first one to be like...
Yeah, don't get me wrong. This wasn't a knock.
No. I'm not taking it as a knock by any means.
To be quite honest with you, Riv and I talk about it, Marty, there's not enough of it.
I agree.
On teams these days.
I think sometimes... Maybe because I grew up with like junior coaches and younger coaches that told me how it was. And if I didn't, and if they told me I wasn't doing my job, I went home, and if I complained to my dad would be like, well, then why aren't you doing your job, kind of thing, right? Like, where I grew up in that generation of a little more old school blue collar, where I think now sometimes some of these younger kids are so talented, so young, that everybody around them is always like massaging them. Like, there's always like, it's not your fault, it's somebody else. And so I think sometimes that accountability is lost a bit, where I think that's something that's so important. I think after every game, if you can go, whether I win, lose, whatever, there's always something you can do better, right? So as long as you can be constructive with yourself, and I think for me, because I bring it every day, I try to be a consummate pro and do the right things, that it gives me that leeway to be honest with guys and try to. And it doesn't come from
a tough balance, though, to be able to talk about some negatives in a win and then trying to pull positives from a loss.
Yeah.
I mean, because you lose, and there's that mindset of you just lost. I mean, so it's an interesting balance to try to maintain there.
Yeah, definitely. I know it's. But I feel playing in this league, it's managing those wins and losses, right? It's managing the highs and lows of an 82 game season. You guys know how it is, right? It's such a grind. So when I was younger, I was the same thing. I thought I was I got more influenced by like outside factors. Like, even nowadays, like social media, right? Like, there was a point in my career where, I looked my name up on Twitter and I'd be like, oh, I'm awesome. And then there'd be like that one bad comment and I'd be like, that would like stick with me. Where now I've learned the maturity of it, like, that doesn't matter, right? Like, the powers that be, like, there's enough people that know hockey. If I'm not doing my job, they're going to let me know. So I think just trying to block out those negative and positive things and just deal with what's in the present is like a...
Do you try to teach some of your younger teammates that philosophy?
I do. I tell the young guys, if you're on social media, you should be just following girls, not following, like, hockey stuff, and you know what I mean? Like just, well, for the married guy, right? So
Is that
Any good follows we should know about,
I don't
Carter?
know. We can ask a couple of the young guys, but
You mentioned your dad. How's your dad doing? Because he comes by the set before the games. He's always very early to games. He'll come and say hi to Brian Duff and I and talk a little hockey, and makes me think of my dad, come into my games or my brother's games and always wearing the same sweater because he was very superstitious. So how's Mr. Hutton doing?
they're doing well. He's excited watching the playoffs too. Same thing. I think they're just excited for the next grandkid, but yeah, he's a hockey nut. He eats, sleep, breathe it. I think I think the first day I brought him in here, about 10 people came up to me like, "Oh, I met your dad. I met your dad." He has a way of making his way around the arena and introducing himself to everybody. But
the doors are not even open, and he's walking the 200 level bowl and talking to every usher.
He's working
and
the crowd already.
every person over there. So it's great.
You're from very north, but are you rocking We the North these days? Are you in on the Raptors?
I'm not a basketball fan.
I hate basketball, but I've watched 4 full games.
I know, I've been into it too. The best part is I was watching one of I don't know what game, maybe Game 7 there against the Bar game, whatever game it was, and I was
Milwaukee.
I was like judging every play. Come on, what do you do? Make that play. I don't even know basketball.
How do you miss that?
Yeah,
How do you miss that shot? Yeah,
I'm like,
It's travel. That's the only one I can call. He took 4 steps.
Yeah.
That's travel. Like, I don't know.
We were arguing the other day. You said he took 4. I said he took 3.
Same difference. It's one too many.
It's travel.
It's travel.
But I bought in. I drank the juice. I'm in. So it's just cool for the whole country, right? To see everybody buy into it. And
Stephen A. Smith said yesterday, who is going to come into the Oracle and perform? Kawhi Leonard? No, that's not going to happen. Leonard goes in there and drops 30, right?
Yeah.
So it was awesome last night.
It was a pretty amazing game. Anyway, this has been an amazing interview. Hopefully we can have you on again soon. Good luck with the baby.
Thank you.
Have a great summer. And if we don't see you, we'll see you at training camp. Carter Hutton here on the Instigators,
Sounds good,
WGR
guys.
550
Thank you.
and MSG.